Welcome to Shakin Hands, where we provide the platform for entrepreneurs and thought leaders to share their stories in order to hopefully influence others to get out of the rat race and chase their own dreams. If you have any recommendations for guests or questions that you want to be asked, please don't hesitate to reach out. Anyways, if you enjoy the podcast, please like, comment, subscribe, and share in order to keep the podcast growing. Otherwise, I'm your host, Jack Moran, and this is Shakin Hands. If you're looking for business mentorship, I have a place where you can get feedback on your unique personal development and business growth challenges. Over the last year, I've brought together a group of impact-driven thought leaders where we meet every single day to discuss psychology, communication, mindset, and business case studies. We have people who have made millions of dollars, lost millions of dollars, Harvard MBAs, and new entrepreneurs like you and I. Entrepreneurship can be lonely, so if you're looking for a support system, please follow the link in the description below for some more information. What's good? Like, you tell me a little bit about what you got going on. What's your business?
So I'm co-founder of 12 South. We started 12 South in 2009. My wife and I started it on the proverbial dining room table. And the concept was to do like really compelling accessories for like Macs and MacBooks. We were kind of coming out of like the golden age of the billion-dollar accessory ecosystem for iPods and iPhones. And a new consumer to the Apple brand would buy an iPod, would get an iPod for Christmas. And then when they needed a new laptop, they loved the brand and wanted to like step into like a MacBook. And so they went from a $200 iPod to a $2,000 MacBook, but the ecosystem didn't follow them, right? There was just white PC accessories that were Mac compatible. And as an Apple fanboy myself, I knew that was like BS. And that the Mac community would really eat up and deserve like really compelling accessories for them. Really the creative community. Something like the folks that like, started dedicating themselves to laptop life in terms of using a laptop like a desktop connected to a huge external monitor, separate keyboard and mouse, and rocking that. There weren't really accessories or tools to really make that possible. So one of the first products that we did at 12 South in 2009 was a simple product called the Book Arc, just this little arc of aluminum that held your MacBook closed in vertical mode. So it kind of cleaned up a small, tidy desk and then connected it to an external monitor using closed clamshell mode, which a lot of people didn't know about.
Closed clamshell mode?
Closed clamshell mode is the mode, that's what Apple calls it, when you use your MacBook closed but connected to an external monitor with external keyboard and mouse. Basically using it like a desktop, even though it's a laptop. So dedicating yourself to a big, bright 20, 30-inch monitor for like your workspace. And then you unplug that stuff and use it like a laptop when you're on the go. So we started 12 South in 2009, really dedicated to making like Apple and Mac accessories for the creative community, and kind of went from there.
Wow, cool.
Mm-hmm.
Is this your first business that you've done?
Not the first business I've been in, the first business I've started for sure. My wife came from a fashion industry background, so she actually knew what to do and was really smart about, the merchandising and the finances and stuff. And then I was kind of the creative nerd who just wanted to make accessories and toys and stuff that I needed.
Yeah.
And so it was a good combination.
What were you doing before you started this business?
I kind of made my way into this space through a company called Griffin Technology in Nashville, Tennessee. Griffin back in the day was like just kind of pirates. They would like get Apple computers and rip them apart and find the opportunities and holes in it. Apple relies on third-party companies to do almost everything from software to also hardware. They also are really progressive in their technology. Of course they are, right? But so often they leave opportunities behind and moving forward, right? Like way back in the day, something Griffin did successfully is Apple used to use keyboards with the ADB port connector, and then they moved to USB. But there was all these really important dongles that unlocked software at the time. And so they made a product called the iMate, which was nothing but just an ADB to USB adapter. And so while at Griffin and like working with Paul Griffin, the founder, I really kind of figured out that if you look for the opportunities, you can make accessories that are really clutch, that really kind of unpack ways to use tools different. And honestly, that's kind of what Apple was all about. And so that really kind of like opened my eyes to the opportunities if you kind of look for them like that. So from Griffin, I actually went to a company called DLO, Digital Lifestyle Outfitters. Um, DLO was like one of the first big brands to really, really go into the iPod ecosystem. The first accessories in CompUSA, this old computer store, and then Best Buy in a big way. And DLO was really one of the first big box accessory makers for the iPod and iPhone ecosystem. And so that's actually what got me to Charleston in about 2005. We moved our family down here and helped DLO kind of take over the world. And we sold to Philips in, I don't know, 2007, 2008. And by then, I was getting the itch to do it myself. So my wife's career was like winding down. She was working remote from New York City. And so in 2009, we decided to like do this ourselves again with the insight that there's this massive ecosystem for the mobile devices from Apple, but nothing of note for the larger computers, to make good accessories and tools to really expand what you can do with those.
So, what was the environment of Griffin and DLO? Were those large companies or small business?
No, no, not at the time. Griffin was in Nashville, and just a handful of like super talented technicians and people just kind of making it happen. DLO is a little more larger and sophisticated. DLO actually, their one of their magic tricks was, if you recall, when iPods and iPhones came out, there was a race to market for the accessories and the cases because it was a big secret, like what the iPod was going to look like or what the iPhone was going to look like.
Oh,
And so
interesting.
you would find that out in September, and whoever had the first cases would get the pegs and get the business and stuff like that. And so DLO became very, very good at that. One of the ways they became very good at that is that they would ship the raw product unpackaged to Durham, North Carolina, and do the packaging on site in Durham. And that would save them weeks because they could they could cram like 200 action jackets into like a small box and FedEx that at a very low
Action
cost.
jacket?
That was this neoprene case. So like the iPod was great, holds like a
I
thousand
remember the
songs on your
OtterBox.
pocket. Right. Well, okay. So the action jacket was kind of the first kind of case that you use to jog or go to the gym with your iPod. And then they made the TransPod, which was this like FM adapter that lets you play and power your iPod in your car over your FM radio and stuff like that back in the day. So they did really well. So again, they had not manufacturing, but packaging facilities in Durham, North Carolina. And then the executive and creative team came down to Charleston in 2005-ish. And so that's when I joined them.
Interesting.
And so I kept designing products and then doing the marketing at the same time and stuff. And so a little bit of everything.
So, what was that transition like from working for these companies in the space to starting your own business?
Well, besides terrifying, um, you just kind of did it. I kind of started keeping a notebook of ideas. Like, what if you did this? What if you did that? There's a need for this. There's a need for that. What would that look like? Um, and so I had a pile of them. I had like probably 30 or 40 possible ideas, and it didn't really fit at all with what the other companies were doing. DLO, purchased by Philips, was still focused on primarily soft goods for the iPhones and iPods and stuff like that. So Mac accessories were not really their thing. So when I stepped away from that to do Mac accessories, they were like, "Have at it. Good luck with that." You want to do a stand that holds a MacBook closed. Uh, uh, so it seemed kind of wacky, but so a pile of ideas, and then started figuring out how to make them, put a little deck together, and started running it by kind of trusted friends and advisors and getting their feedback. Um, and then at some point, you got to figure out how to do it. And w- uh, we made prototypes by any means necessary. We had a cousin in rural Tennessee that had like a machine shop. And so they cut like a really crude version of the book arc. And for the protection inside the little place that holds the MacBook, we put um, aquarium tubing to protect the MacBook. And so, so I had some contacts in the space and started kind of showing them I have this kind of crazy idea. We're thinking of starting a thing to dedicate ourselves to Mac accessories. So we kind of just did it. And there's a manufacturer that actually kind of dog-eared a magazine. I was like Business 2.0 magazine, this old magazine. And it was talking about sourcing from Asia. And there was this one person featured there. And so when I was ready, we kind of just went to the internet, kind of searched her out, found her Skype, and like rung her up. No. And got over to China and met with them, and they really got it, and so we were off to the races.
So when did it start like gaining traction? You were building these prototypes and y- I don't know, it sounds like maybe you had a little bit of a deal flow coming from some of these old partners that you were working with that
Not really. I mean, we kind of like it was pretty independent. We had to figure out how to make them, and like 3 or 4 of the products kind of became clear how to make with a couple contacts, like the one overseas. And so we were getting prototypes made. I knew the Apple Store team from working at Griffin and then DLO. We helped launch the Apple Store there. And so I reached out and said, we have this kind of like crazy idea. We'd love to come out and show you. And crickets for like weeks. We're like, well, that's not going to work. But then all of a sudden, out of nowhere, um, a dude calls me up. I'd sent like the pitch deck, and they said, the retail team, wants to see you. And all we really wanted to do was to kind of get our ideas blessed. We were actually going to go start overseas because that's the hardest one, and kind of like work the kinks out, and then maybe come to the States, and then maybe years later be worthy enough to like, have our products in the Apple Store. And so
you were going to start in their Apple stores overseas.
we were no, not at all. I didn't think that we could get in the Apple stores. That was crazy. That was kind of like a really far away dream. We were going to start with just small APRs. Those are Apple premium resellers, little small stores overseas, kind of like build the brand and build up a name and stuff like that. And then maybe one day be an Apple. But so they granted us a meeting, and we just kind of wanted their endorsement. We kind of wanted them to say, yeah, this is cool. Good luck with that. Keep us posted, right? And so we went out to Apple. I took a meeting with like 3 or 4 folks on campus. And I had just received the first prototype of one of our first products that was called the backpack. This like wacky product that like created a shelf on the back of an iMac where you kind of stored your hard drives and hubs and stuff like that. And I hadn't tested it. We'd like just gotten it out of the box. And so we kind of run through our presentation, kind of talking about like really just 3 or 4 products. We had prototypes for 2 or 3 products. And then we had this backpack that I'd never tried before. And the buyer for Apple said, this looks kind of cool. Can you demonstrate this product on this iMac right here? And I'm like, oh my God. So, sure, of course. So I took it out. I don't know if like they could see my hand shaking as I kind of like put the hooks on it and stuff like that. And then like, carefully put it on the back of the iMac. And then I think he took something crazy. I don't know what he took, but he like took something off the thing and like dropped it on it. And I was like, and it held. It was like, great. So we'll carry this and we'll pick up the book arc. When can you ship? And we were like, what just happened?
Wow.
And so he's like, yeah, this is great stuff. Love what you're doing. We'll take the book arc and the backpack in stores. When can you ship? And the answer was, I don't know. We need to figure out how to make it. So that was amazing. And that was a huge break. And I think they kind of recognized that we were really sincere in wanting to really kind of like elevate the ecosystem, and weren't just there for the opportunity, weren't just there like, surfing on the coattails of the opportunity, that we wanted to really elevate the ecosystem of people using Macs and MacBooks to do amazing creative things. And so they appreciated it and they gave us our shot, which was funny. So when um, we launched at Apple stores, and then through kind of the same kind of contact and Amazon Direct as well. So we started at like the largest channels there are, and so it was interesting because we had to reverse the the concept. We had to defend those stores of our brand because at that point we couldn't sell to everybody. We had to actually defend it
Hmm.
because we kind of it was odd. We started at the top and had to defend down and be really careful about our distribution at that point from that
What do you
point.
mean you had to defend it?
Well, you didn't want to put your products everywhere because you could create price erosion.
Okay, can you
Um,
explain that to me?
Yep. If you distribute your products in every single store that it can possibly go, there comes a point where the only way those stores can compete is to drop your price. And if any one channel, drops the price, all of the other channels watch it and they drop it as well. So it really erodes your pricing in any given area if you put it in too many places, and those places have no choice but to drop the price.
Interesting.
Ideally, everyone is at SRP so that it's like fair, and so everyone has what they need out of the
Standard or retail
product.
price or what?
Yeah, MSRP,
Oh,
manufacturer's
MSRP.
suggested retail price.
Got it.
So yeah, so honestly, we really just were really narrow, controlled our distribution really, really carefully, and then sold off our website as well, and just kept showing stuff to our friends in Cupertino, and they kept buying it, and it was a rush, man. Like, going out to like Apple and showing them this like dumb idea that you had in the shower 6 months before, and them going, "That's cool. Let's do that."
So how did you know about this price erosion? I feel like that would be like a lesson that you would run into a wall to figure out, but
We had a rep named Chris Mason that actually helped us out, in these really kind of humongous opportunities. And that was really the first thing that he pitched. He's like, "This is all great, but this creates a different strategy, and that is to defend and keep your channels as clean as possible." And so not selling to everybody, being very careful, intentional about that. I think like any business can do that by choosing who they sell to. You don't necessarily want to sell to everybody. Where your products are sometimes is important as what they are.
that's very interesting.
Right? If you're in Nordstrom, your product is going to be viewed differently than if you were in a discount store, right? And that is going to be, how the market, like, considers your brand or experiences your brand.
So it seems like, you were lucky that you had someone that kind of gave you that advice. You didn't walk into that, hole, um, and learn the hard way. What were some experiences that you weren't as lucky that, did cause some collateral damage that you had to figure out after the fact?
I mean, that happens every day. We're still running 12 South now. 12 South took on partners in 22, and so I'm still involved as well, obviously. So it's always a challenge. Tariffs we're in the middle of are a massive challenge for us and everyone else. So, keeping our channels clean is a constant challenge. It's crazy. You want to sell to everyone who wants to buy it, but if you put it out in too many places and there becomes a pricing concern and it affects I mean, like there's robots that look at the prices of all their competitors and stuff like that, and they chase each other. And so you can get into a pricing death spiral very easily. You want to try and avoid that. Um, so so yeah. So I mean, it's not a one-time thing. It's just kind of the cost of doing business and like just something that you kind of learn.
What is it like doing business overseas? Are you guys still, I know you said it earlier, you guys were doing some manufacturing in
Well, we
Asia.
sell in over 50 countries, and we have a handful of products in every Apple store in the world, including in Asia. And manufacturing overseas is wonderful, honestly. It's the toy store. And it's the toy store because, like Southeast China became experts at making a small amount of products for a good price. And when you're a small business who has this great idea, you can't afford to make 100,000 of them. You need to make 800 or 1,500. You have a minimum order quantity, right? And contract factories can do that because they set up an assembly line and they manage ordering and testing all of the subcomponents. So the contract factories, handle getting you a sellable finished product. And that's what's difficult to do anywhere else, especially in the States, and especially at a really small quantity that lets a small business try an idea, right? Like, so back to our first idea, the book arc and the backpack. We couldn't order 100,000 of those. We couldn't afford that, and we didn't have the channels for that. We had to try that product first. We had to order a couple thousand, and getting money for that was challenging as well, right? So the contract factories that really are the toy factory for most of the world are why we have such great inexpensive goods, because they're set up for that. And so it's not, I mean, it does involve the cost of labor, but more so it's the efficiency that they've built to do that in a very flexible way. They can build our product in the morning and then come back and build a camera in the afternoon because they're flexible in how they assemble stuff. And so that's why we manufacture there. Although 12 South manufacturers all over the world now. We're in India, Vietnam, a little bit of Taiwan, and a little bit of China. And one of my favorite things in the world was visiting some of these places because they're craftsmen. They're spectacularly talented at what they do. And so it's an honor actually to work with some of these really talented folks.
Who's the best?
They're all different. Depends on what you want to do, right? And then sometimes you need to find another partner when you have a technology you want. We have a really popular product called the AirFly, which is basically a Bluetooth transmitter. It's how you use your AirPods on an airplane, right?
Yep.
For the in-flight entertainment. And so when we had the idea for AirFly, we didn't have a partner that did Bluetooth. And so we needed to go find a partner that was an expert at Bluetooth and then work with them to develop the product. They're a fantastic partner. And so sometimes you actually have to find new partners when you have a new idea and you don't have like a current partner that has that like core competency or capability.
So you had mentioned before, now not your manufacturing partners, but it sounds like you've taken on some partners like on the equity level or something within the company.
Mhm.
What is that like? How do you maintain the integrity of your vision now when you have other decision makers in the sphere?
Well, it's completely different than the entrepreneurial kind of way that, you were just like, um, in the trenches, like just like duking it out and like surviving. We partnered with private equity in 22 and it's to like take it to the next level. So it's really exciting.
Mm.
You're building up a larger team. You're compartmentalizing the efforts so that it can scale. So it's completely different challenges, but still kind of fun challenges on their own. It's a whole different kind of beast. But I will say it still requires creativity. It still requires that idea. Kind of like Nashville says, it all starts with a song. And what we do, it still starts with an idea. And that's still the most important part. But everything else from there is a little more sophisticated and a larger scale.
How do you keep the peace with like so many players now in the tank?
I don't. Uh, I'm the founder in the corner that like just kind of comes up
You
with
create the
concepts.
chaos.
No, no, no. Yes, I have been known to create chaos. I try not to do that very much. It's been an adjustment. Listen, when we were like 5 or 6 people in a small little room, everyone could do a little bit of everything. It's not really that way anymore. It's a little bit more sophisticated and compartmentalized.
You said your wife came from the fashion industry, right?
You bet.
Well, first of all, what's it like running a business with your romantic partner?
Challenging.
How so?
Every way. Um, my partner was amazing. He's really smart, really contributed a lot. Um, but it's difficult turning it off, going from colleague to spouse in the evening. I mean, when you lay your head on the pillow, are you talking about a business thing or not? How do you shut it off? Um, how do you interact in the workspace that is respectful to them as your spouse, but also interacting with them as a colleague, going through creative differences and challenges like that. Um, I'm not sure I recommend it, but we were good at it and it was successful. So that's the tricky thing.
What habits did you guys instill to have success as partners and not have a negative impact on the relationship or minimize that negative effect on the relationship doing business with each other?
Well, especially in the early days, it was still really, everything was still fun. Everything was still super exciting. So traveling all over the world, as business partners and partners, was a blast. And so that was really fun. Saved on travel, stay in one room, right? And we had great adventures. So especially on the early days, like starting up a business with your spouse. However, I do remember really early on before we launched, we were in 4 Points Sheraton, the Four Points Celadon is how they said it. And we had gone there with one thing in mind that had completely failed. Completely, like we were in, so we were, in the hotel room looking at each other like, what in the hell are we gonna do? How do we get into this mess? Um, and that was challenging because I'm like, am I ruining this person's life? What are we doing? Risking our kids' college education funds and stuff, trying to start this silly business. And then literally a couple hours later, we got a drawing of the first product from the factory that ended up working out. And so we ran out and celebrated and found some fancy restaurant to eat at and stuff. So it was quite the adventure. Um, Honestly, it got more difficult the further we got into it because we had to start compartmentalizing our roles. And if you don't like the role, uh, you can own a McDonald's, but if you're stuck making the fries, you don't necessarily love your gig.
Yeah.
Um, and so that became a little tricky when we had to kind of like separate our duties and stuff, and I would like go off and do interviews and be at Apple and stuff, and she was like stuck back doing the paperwork and all the hard
You
stuff
get to
that
have all the fun.
that's kind of what it looked like, except that's what I was good at and that was my contribution and stuff. So I would say the most fun certainly was the beginning and as the most risky. And I do not have any advice, maybe to like, I don't know. I don't know. That's tricky.
Yeah. You said so I was gonna ask this, but then I circled back a little bit, but she came from the fashion industry. How much or how important, is the aesthetics of that product? Um, how much does that correlate to the success of the product as the aesthetics? And I know Steve Jobs, you said you're an Apple geek.
Sure, man.
Steve Jobs was huge about aesthetics,
Of course.
and I think he took an aesthetics class in college that was, um, like, his biggest inspiration for
He took a calligraphy
calligraphy, that
class.
was what it was,
He took a
calligraphy.
calligraphy class at Reed after he had decided to like quit. So I think he was auditing the class. And in the calligraphy class he discovered and learned about the beauty
Around
of the
it.
shapes of fonts and lettering and stuff and spacing and stuff. And that then directly informed how they built the Mac and like which led to the entire desktop publishing revolution and stuff like that. So that's definitely one of those connect the dots later and just kind of follow your gut through that.
Do you embody some of those philosophies?
100%. Um, uh, I met Jobs once or twice, and it was very inspiring, a lot of fun. Um, so yeah. So I mean, and just the whole think different thing. I mean, like the creativity is often looking at something just different, like recognizing an opportunity and recognizing that it a solution can fill the gap and stuff like that. Especially in the Apple space, because Apple, for their size, makes a really small selection of products and they rely heavily on third parties to fill those gaps. And that's in software. Like imagine the iPhone without the App Store. The iPhone shipped without an App Store. The first couple phones, there weren't external apps, but like look at it now. The App Store in a lot of ways is just as important to the phone as the hardware. And I mean, of course, the apps on the Macs and MacBook, Microsoft Office and the Adobe suite and stuff like that, they complete what the hardware was built to do. Well, so do accessories, right? Accessories connect it to your car or how you charge it on the go or give you extra power when you have a long day with a battery and stuff like that. So the accessories in the Apple ecosystem, at least, is really important to the success of the whole thing.
And what a privilege it is to have a partner like Apple that is so forward thinking and, has that given you a lot of inspiration within your own business working along I mean, you obviously liked Apple before working with them, but
Well, so, I mean, when I get the opportunity to visit there, I have to hide, like, my glee. You know what I mean? I'm such a nerd. And so I go there and I'm still just like, "Oh my gosh, we're in a," so it's still kinda shock and awe for me, like, walking into the new mothership.
yeah.
The first time was just like, "Oh my gosh." But then, you deliver your idea and stuff, and, it's just people in that building, like, trying to change the world too. So, yeah, heck yeah, they're inspiring. But at this point, 12 South, it really stands on its own. It's had enough of its own ideas to where 12 South is an inspiration to others and stuff because we've shown that you can take an opportunity, you can take a blind side, and fill that need with the product that you can sell and do well with.
How important do you think it is and how pivotal is it that you have this, like, you're intellectually stimulated by this company and by the venture and by the opportunities that you're pursuing, like, you have a personal passion for these things. How pivotal is that to the success of the company, and would it be as successful if it was just monotonous and you had pursued something that you weren't?
No, so 12 South specifically makes accessories that elevates hardware. I mean, mostly Apple hardware, but like the AirFly, for example, works great with Bose and Sony's, and Beats, which is now still Apple, but you know what I mean. So, um, 12 South exists to be subservient and elevate up other people's hardware. Now we're inspired by Apple because who's not inspired by Apple? You know, when George Foreman grills come in blue, red, and Bondi blue and pink and stuff, because it was influenced by the original iMac. Um, Apple influences everybody, but we're influenced by a lot of things. I'm influenced by architecture, influenced by speaker companies. Bang& Olufsen makes like insane stuff. So, I mean, as a designer, I just kind of am open to a lot of inspiration, and especially from stuff that's not necessarily in our category. Um, like kitchen hardware, Kohler, and like some of the stuff they do with the faucets and stuff is just spectacularly beautiful. And I'm inspired by the curves and the finishes and stuff like that. And honestly, to have something unique in our space, that's the best place to go be inspired is to pull materials and like kind of design languages from other areas and bring them into what you're doing. So if you want to make a really cool charger for the bedside table, well, what's that piece of marble from West Elm look like? What's that lamp look like? What's the hardware from Kohler look like in the adjacent bathroom? Those are really great places to bring into accessorizing your lifestyle and your space.
The reason I ask is because, some of our audience, if not a majority of our audience, may be in that like transition stage where they want to start a business. And, one of the values that we promote a lot is like not leading um, um, with financial motivations, but more that like passion and that intellectual interest because in the entrepreneurship there's so much adversity that you hit and it makes it a lot more difficult to get through that adversity when you're not actually passionate and interested in the idea. And when I listen to you talk, everything that you talk about is how you're interested, how you've always been interested in this space, like these cool ideas, you're inspired, like that language. Not once have you mentioned the reason why you're doing this is because of financial gain. Now obviously that's a part of it, but you're leading with that purpose first. And I think it's important that we demonstrate to entrepreneurs that, you know, finding something that is intellectually stimulating is the like building block of a good company.
Money is the reward for following your passion intelligently, right? You have to make all the numbers work or you don't get to do it again. but it has to start with, scratching your own itch, and something that you're deeply passionate about, because that'll get you through the difficult days. That'll get you excited when you see your first prototypes or when you make the baby steps towards success, or let's just call it survival. Um, so yeah, so I highly recommend. I mean, you've heard people talk about, I'm going to go to college, I'm going to go to entrepreneur program, and I'm looking for a business to start because I want to make money. And you're like, that's never going to work, dude.
Right.
I mean, maybe it will, but it wouldn't for me. You've got to find your passion, or you're not going to bring to bear the energy necessary to make it in a tough business.
Agreed completely, and I think it's like the whole game of entrepreneurship is really a mental battle more than anything else. Um, and that's why you see, these people with these great like Harvard MBAs and they have these business degrees and they don't perform as well as someone who maybe has some like, you know, some emotional trauma or something that's driving them and they have this like mental fortitude. Like those are the people that persevere. It's
Right.
like not the financial, it's the internal. It's not the external. It's
It's
intrinsic
it's
motivations.
it's to solve a problem you care deeply about, whether that's a service or whether that's creating a product or something like that. If you don't care deeply about it, it's going to show. You can't fake this. It has to come from like a genuine, deep-seated passion.
100%. I have to ask, what was it like meeting Steve Jobs?
Epic.
Wh-
Um,
where'd you meet him?
it was at one of the last Macworld Tokyos, and I had just started. I was probably 3 months in at Griffin Technology, and we had a product called the PowerMate, which was like a little metal volume knob, and we had set it up to control different things on a Mac. And so my two bosses were like away having a smoke. And I was like, kind of manning the front, demonstrating the Power Man, and say, "Oh, I've heard about this thing. Can you show me a demo of it?" And I looked up, and it was like Steve and Katie Cotton, and I was like, "Oh my god, yes, Steve, I'll be glad to give you a demo. Check this out." And so it, bam, we just ran through it. It went really well, and he's like, "Great, that's cool, that's cool." Um, and so he was walking away, and I said, "Have you seen the other stuff we're doing? We actually took your iPod and made it a remote control." And he's like, "Really?" And so, like, pulled him back into the booth, and we went through all the stuff. We talked about the keynote he just finished, and just we talked about DVD players. There was like portable DVD players were a thing, and he was like, "Oh, I've never seen this or that." And I said, "Well, your iBook is the best one right now." And he's like, "Yeah, you know." And so it was really fun. It was great. It was, certainly a 15, 20 minutes I'll never forget.
In that short interaction, was there anything that you take away from him, like how he interpreted things or his personality type?
He was a really nice dude, actually. I mean, he has a reputation for being hard, and I think that comes from him being decisive and, like, just not suffering fools, right? But in our interactions, he was really kind, and I ran into him a couple times at campus, starting stuff. He wasn't involved in what we were doing, but just, like, seeing the dude was pretty cool.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I have a question that I like to ask, and I only have a couple more, and I know you're a busy guy, so we'll let you run. But if you had $1 million of guilt-free capital right now, so you didn't have to pay it back, how would you deploy it within the business? Which I know you guys are partnered up with private equity, so it's probably not too hard to come by, but I'm interested to hear what you think are the priorities within the business.
Well, I'll spin the question around and say, especially for entrepreneurs, cash is king. Don't mess around. Cash is king. The lights turn out when the cash is gone. So, when you're getting started and you're kind of finding your way through it, you're looking at your profit margins and this and that. At the end of the day, all that wipes away in cash, cash, cash. So if you have an opportunity for cash, take it. If you have a thing that is kind of like a little bit of a side channel to what you're doing, take the cash. Cash allows you to like fight another day. So, and in a startup, in an entrepreneurial scenario, I would just recommend that no matter what you do, cash is king. Cash, cash, cash. Um, that lets you, again, wake up and do it again another day.
Absolutely. That's great advice.
Mm.
What do you think is the single biggest lesson that you've learned through this entrepreneurial journey? What's the something that you know now that you wish you knew when you started out?
Well, there's hundreds of lessons left and right. Honestly, I've got to do it again one day because I've learned so many lessons. I did some stuff good and some stuff bad and made some mistakes that kind of makes me want to like do it again one day. Just to like, deploy the lessons and see like if I learned anything. But like the single lesson through starting 12 South, probably the whole trust your gut thing. Probably if you follow your feelings and don't like second guess it too much, just kind of like go straight arrow from what your gut is telling you. You have really no better measure than what your gut is telling you to do.
Why do you think that works?
I don't know.
Some quantum, like,
I know, right? Um, I think because people typically know exactly what to do, and 100 things get in the way of that. Static, other people's advice, doubt. But you knew what to do really quickly. That's kind of like your first idea was typically the best idea.
hmm
I think that's all kind of related.
Interesting.
Hmm.
If people are interested in your products or they want to reach out to you and are interested by you, where can they find you? Where can they find your company?
Well, I mean, 12 South is awesome. It's 12south.com. We're sold all over the world, but the best place to get a vibe for what we do is at 12south.com. Um, a lot of people find us through one product and then they like look at all products. They're like, oh my gosh, I need that one and that one and that one. And so that's really fun. So, I mean, honestly, at 12 South, we let the products do the talking.
I love that. Well, I appreciate you coming on. It's very inspiring to hear what you've done, and you're very articulate about your entire business, and I can feel the passion. It really translates.
It's a pleasure,
Um,
Jack.
yeah, so appreciate it.
Thanks, buddy.